Good morning, America. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy, either live or on rebroadcast. Hope you all had a great 4th of July and a great long weekend. It was actually pretty nice. And we're going to really hit the ground here talking about some big issues here. Main thing and is estimated tax payments. This is going to be the biggest surprise for taxpayers this coming year. It's already started to surprise people, but it's only going to get worse. So we've got some really good information about how to break that down, how to prepare for it, and make sure that's not going to surprise you and your family. So again, this is something I've talked about before, but we're gonna break it down even further today. And when is the best time to pay? Now. Get ahead of it. We're already 2 quarters into the year. The next payment, estimated quarter payment, is due by September 15th. So stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody had a great 4th of July. Saw some fireworks, ate some great food, and kind of took some time to remember and focus on what makes this country great, what makes it exceptional. Because when you look at our history, there's no question that as far as leading the charge and for democracy and constitutional republics, our U.S. Constitution has been a model across the world and really has made a huge impact in the world. Understanding that to preserve those freedoms today is very important. And one of those big freedoms here is freedom from taxes. That's one of the things that started the whole thing, the Boston Tea Party, but it wasn't the only thing. So how to handle those taxes and how to avoid more penalties and interest is really what we're going to focus on today. And it's all about being prepared, becoming educating yourself, and making sure you're ahead of the curve when it comes to paying your taxes for the year. So we've got a lot of news to cover, like always, and we're going to try to move through it fairly quickly. First article is, of course, hard not to mention what's happening in Texas. So this is, where is this article from? I believe it's a Fox News. Yeah, it's a Fox Weather News article. But again, talking about Hurricane Beryl, it started off in, if you can see the map, they have a map in here. It started off in the Caribbean, hit Jamaica, went down and hit Mexico. It was a Category 5 when it hit Mexico. And now it's down to a Category 1, but it's still very dangerous, causing a lot of problems. It can sail 85 to 92 miles per hour throughout the Houston-Galveston area. So hundreds of thousands of people are out of power. They have a storm surge of 3 to 7 feet in some spots. So it's just, be careful out there. I mean, just a little video here, look at what it looks like hitting the coast of Texas. It is expected not only to hit Texas, but this is the projected path of it. And it'll weaken the further it goes inland, but all the way up through Kentucky and maybe into Iowa. Oh no, that's Missouri, and then southern Illinois. So it gives you a better idea of it. Illinois, Indiana, possibly dumping rain in Ohio even. So expect a lot of rain, expect a lot of nasty weather, and just be prepared. So that's one of the big things that they're talking about. Get the supplies you need. Get ahead of this, because a lot of people are going to be selling out. Stores are going to be emptied, trying to get supplies. But as long as you're prepared, it shouldn't be a problem. Most people should be taken care of. So here's an interesting article popped up. This is from CNBC. Job scams. Oh my goodness, what are they going to think of next? And apparently these have been around forever, but it's getting much worse, where people are going and clicking on jobs that look good. These are primarily for people looking to work remotely, which again is very appealing. It makes, saves you money on commuting and all that. But again, job scams going up 118% in 2023, so more than doubling. They're even using AI to put these job scams out, and this is what to be aware of. So again, this is very concerning. It's people trying to find better jobs, trying to get out there. And again, this is something the prosecutors are seeing. Mainly, they pose as recruiters, and they're posting fake job ads on legitimate sites. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Craigslist. So again, with the growth of artificial intelligence, there are plenty of people using it for evil and to scam people. Now, what are they after? Money. Typical victim is losing about $2,000 on these scams. But even worse, personal information. So when you go and you're applying for a job, when you're applying online, you have to put a lot of personal information on there. Pardon me. But they're saying, look, watch out during the interview process. Be wary if it's asking for your driver's license, date of birth, social security number. You want, and eventually you should give that information to a company, but that's when you're actually hired on. So how, and again, this is where it says, a lot of this is coming in on LinkedIn and other legitimate sites. So just because you're looking at a job and it's on a legitimate site, don't trust it. So this is damages around $367 million from these types of scams. And these are from people looking for jobs that are least able to afford it. So the money is part of it, but the other half of it is stealing your identity. So they only account for 9% of total identity scams in 2023, but it's a growing percentage. And I guess Google voice scams totaled 60% of that. So they trick people into sharing Google verification code, and then they use that to steal their identity, and it's nuts. So here it says job scams have been around ever since there were jobs. It's getting much worse though with the use of AI, which is hard to track. So how do you fight this? Even though you might not have, for a legitimate job, you might never see a physical person, you should be checking out the company, verifying who they are, that they're actually hiring, contact the company directly. So if you are only communicating via text or WhatsApp, that's a big red flag because they can be anywhere. And a lot of these scammers are overseas and targeting individuals. Some of these scams are being supported, like in China. The government supports, the Chinese Communist government actively supports making money off of scamming Americans and other people across the world. In a way, the Chinese government really is a criminal enterprise. Making tons of money off of importing fentanyl and other drugs into the United States too. So if you have someone pushing for money during the hiring process, beware, run the other way, report them. They send you an invoice for advance payment, and then they promise to reimburse you, but won't. So sure, cast this check, send us part of the check in a different format. That's a huge red flag. I've never had that happen ever in any kind of job application, but that is a classic scam, and to make that someone's first assignment for a job is really nefarious. Asking for personal information before you're actually hired. Driver's license, social security number, bank account details. Um, Asking for that upfront for employment paperwork, that's a huge red flag. So if someone's doing this and if it's a legitimate company, first you probably don't want to be working for that company, but you might want to call them directly. It's like, hey, I want to communicate with you directly because this is what scammers have been using. You know, you're asking for this stuff. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they are being scammed. You can have jobs posted for legitimate companies, but the scammers are using that information. So you have to do what you can to verify that this is correct. Again, there's no surefire way to protect from job opportunity scams, but here's some hints. Just because you're on a well-known job search platform, don't trust it. Don't have a false sense of security just because you're on your LinkedIn or Facebook or Craigslist. Independently verify the company exists and is hiring. Don't accept a job offer until you've done your own research. So reach out to the company directly, not through whoever's initiating the contact. Verify that it is a valid post. If you didn't initiate the contact, that's another huge red flag. So scammers are out there all the time trying to get people to respond so that they can try to steal their money and assets. The only information you should be including is name, phone number, job and education history, and perhaps an email and home address. That's all you should provide until you're actually hired. Digital only interactions are a big red flag. Phone calls are no guarantee though. Honest employers won't send you a check to buy supplies or anything else. Again, that's a fake check scam where you cast a check, you get the money, and then the check bounces later on, and then you're on the hook for the whole amount of the check. And last, this is always a big insight, be wary of something that sounds too good to be true. There's no free lunch, people. There's no, usually if it sounds too good to be true, it is. And checking it if it does look, if you do have some of these red flags, do your due diligence, check into it deeper, talk to other, do what you can to actually do your due diligence about checking into this company. So again, that's a new scam that's out there. Be aware, be wary. This is kind of a sad tale. Chicago and some other major cities have horrible crime going on. Over the 4th of July weekend in Chicago, 87 were shot. By Sunday morning, 16 of them were killed. And so again, this is, don't want to delve into too much. There's just, a lot of drive-bys. One of them was described as a mass shooting where mostly gang members are taking out people, and it's scary. And again, it's just quote from Von Bryant, who's the Peace Initiatives Director. He said, "It's our city, and anything that is happening in our city as citizens, it's our responsibility. You can't complain that you don't have businesses or things that are going on when you're not keeping it safe and the areas for businesses to thrive." That's really the end thing. It hurts the small businesses the most. It hurts the people that rely on those businesses, and unfortunately, the citizens without options. So, again, talking about and continuing with this theme, we're on a break right now, so we'll have to come back. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to jump to the next article here. And this is an interesting article. What's going on in France? I've mentioned this a couple of times, and this was people already kind of saw the handwriting on the wall, what was going to happen. So they had the way the French Republic is set up is it's designed. Our Constitution is designed in a similar manner to make it hard for the government to lurch too far to the right or too far to the left. It's designed to be more centrist. That's why, again, they don't have the Senate being elected. The Senate is elected 1/3 at a time, rotates every 6 years. So for a party to really take over the whole government, they have to win the presidential election. They'd have to win the House, which is every 2 years, but also gain enough power in the Senate, which requires some real staying power. And so, and then you also have the Supreme Court that are elected for life to adjudicate on the laws and what's actually constitutional. So there's a lot of inertia built into our Constitution. So same thing with France. They have certain methods. When they do their elections, they do the first round of elections. And I guess that kind of gets rid of a lot of the fringe candidates. And then they have, and this is where it's everybody just votes for whatever party they want. And then they have a second round where, again, you just have the top few candidates going for it. And so what happened here is you had Macron, who's been leading a center-left coalition or center-left party, and he's had the majority in their parliament. And so people have not been happy with him, with the direction of France. And so they have these snap elections. The far right won the first round. And in the second round, Macron's centrists partnered with the far left communists to make sure that whoever was in second place in elections throughout the country. So the person that got the first number of votes in most of the country was the far right. But they got about 32%, whereas the centrists and then the communists, well, center left and the communists, both got around 20%, 20 to 25%. So they said, look, if we support each other's candidates, whoever's strongest in each area, and the other person will drop out, that will prevent the far right from winning the majority of the votes. So the center left and then the far left made this deal to prevent the far right from taking over parliament and changing the course of government. What happened is the far left, the communist left, got the majority of parliamentary seats, followed by the center left, and then the far right was left with the fewest amount of seats. So they won, but then the far left still went out and rioted. So it's kind of like, okay. And one of their concerns is, you can have violence on the far right or the far left, and sometimes it's even the middle, but usually middle are your average Joes just trying to work and make a living. But they claimed that there would be rioting in the streets if the far right won. Far left won, and there were still rioting in the streets, mainly by Antifa. A lot of Palestinian flags out there. So really, this is the far left protesting in the streets, even though they won. So things went their way. The government had to mobilize 30,000 police nationally, 5,000 in Paris alone. Well, they did this in expectation of riots. But they won, and they still rioted. So it just kind of, black bloc Antifa-sided radicals with Antifa flags and the Palestinian flags dominated these demonstrations. So it was kind of funny. So the concern here is now that they called it an alliance of dishonor between the center left and the far left to make sure that the right didn't take over. It's the left, the far left in France, that's been supportive and instigators of political violence. Again, cars and furniture, all kinds of stuff being burned in France or in Paris. And some of the things that we're hearing from the far left, a dead cop is one less vote for Le Pen, which is the far right. Too often we just listen to labels far right, far left. The question is, what are they actually going to do? So, and again, this is where constitutional rights and freedoms get eroded, is when you have one side using intimidation tactics and violence and rioting to intimidate their political opponents. So, the far left coalition they won most of the seats due to how they rigged the system or played the system, and they still had massive rights. So it's just, wow. One of the big concerns, though, is that you have the socialists, Greens, communists, and the one hard camp with Mélenchon vowing to implement several socialist policies, increase taxes, and mainly increase social spending. So these numbers aren't, you see different numbers as you go through it, but really the party with the most was the far right, but then the center and then the far left combined. And together they had more votes than the far right. So I think you're going to see France lurch further to the left as a result of this. But then the voters, the center voters, have to decide, what do they really want? Do they really want socialism, or do they want a return to more capitalism? And they'll make that decision. But France, behind Germany, is the second largest economy in Europe, so it does make a difference, does have an impact. So moving ahead, we have an interesting article here, and I don't have time to go through it, so I'm going to try to make it a little quicker, from the Epic Times. And it's talking about his experience of going to the grocery store. Again, he was, instead of paying $20 for olive oil, it's now $40. And he talked to the owner of the store. He's a reporter, that's what he does. And he's told me, look, he's making no more money off this price than the old. His markup is the same. It's just the suppliers have increased the prices dramatically because they have to pay more, and everybody's paying for it. And he said, believe me, I'm not making any money, just the opposite. These prices are killing us too. Again, you can't just raise prices without people, one, buying less, two, people getting disgruntled, upset, and looking for other cheaper alternatives. And so I'm just going to try to go through this article quickly. And they say they have a lot of excuses for this, from bad crops to climate change to broken supply chains. But the real issue that's ongoing is inflation. Too much money creation by the central banks. And the government is still doing it. They just opened up another round for SBA loans in the United States, and they're still throwing money at the economy. And we're not talking a little bit of money. We're talking billions upon billions of dollars being thrown at the economy to try to improve things. And it's tough for people out there. But the problem is, the more money the government throws at the situation, the more we overspend, the worse they're making the situation. And we always got away with it, but I think really, Republican and Democrat administrations are both at fault for this. But it's getting to the point where average Americans are really getting hit hard in the wallet here. So he goes through, and some of this it's based on his experience, but he's talking about the difficulties in buying a house, rising stock prices, and the problem is, even when things go up, if the underlying values have not changed, so the actual production numbers, if you don't actually have real production and the stock market goes up, that could be just a reflection of inflation. Everything just costs more. So yeah, stocks are going to cost more because the dollar is worth less. That does not mean that there's real value in the stock market. even though the numbers go up. It's just an illusion, and it's very easy for that to crash. So is your income up or down? The actual numbers are probably up, but your purchasing power is probably decreased quite a bit. And so he goes into the BLS numbers and compares some of this. So this is inflation per the government. When you use alternative inflation numbers, it's closer to 12 to 13% currently, and probably much higher than that. And he's saying this is from Shadow Stats, and it's like if you look at the actual numbers, it's probably much lower than that. And so this is real purchasing power per the government in blue, real median household income in the United States when you take into account for inflation, is just going down. So one of the things that people have used to try to get away from that and make money with all this craziness is crypto. Now, digital investments are big, they're cutting edge, but it's not the save all. It's not the perfect investment, and honestly, there's many financial advisors that still won't touch it. And the reason for it is it's not based on any real production. It's not based on assets. It's just, it could crash tomorrow, and there's nothing to fall back on. There's no real company. There's nothing really undergirding or supporting the valuation of crypto, which is why it can be very volatile. But again, it's getting taxed, and the regulations are really going to step up in 2025. So this was written by for Forbes by Sean Smith, who's a professor in CPA. So the initial law supporting this was passed back in 2021, but everything is being codified and becoming effective January 1st, 2025. So it's taken a long time to put all these rules into place. There has been a lot of reporting that's been required. So the IRS knows about most crypto sites, and what they don't know about is probably a scam. If it's in the dark web and it's stuff that is happening outside the purview of the United States government, it's very, very easy for them to just rip you off. And when you go to the IRS or report it to police, what are you going to tell them? Oh, I was trying to avoid taxes. So it's you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here. I mean, there's no free lunch in life, and you can really hurt yourself by doing this. So again, be very aware. The regulations are stepping up, and you have until 25 or 26 until you have the full weight of all these new regulations in place. And it depends on the subset of crypto. And so be aware that whoever you're using, that they are on top of this, that they are reporting this accurately to the IRS, because if not, you can see different exchanges that aren't complying with the law being investigated, and the value of those dropping like a rock. So it gets into some other things. Just wanted to highlight that. So main article for the day. This is where we're going to stay for the rest of today. I've been talking about this a lot. The IRS is increasing estimated tax payments, penalties. What do federal employees and retirees need to know? So this is specific to federal employees and retirees. But if you have any kind of income where you don't have enough, it's not a W-2 wage, you need to be aware of this. And I'm referring to Social Security, and they talk about Social Security, pensions, if you take out 401k distributions, if you're in retirement, if you have rental income, you have to be on top of this. And or you're going to be hit with a lot more interest and penalties. So this year it jumped up to 8%. for not paying your taxes throughout the year. So it really is, when it says throughout the year, you can pay at the end of the year and still get hit with a hefty penalty, but if you pay by April 15th. So the due dates are, and I'm going to talk about 2024 for this current year that we're in right now. Your first quarterly payment was due April 15th. So if you're used to paying when your tax return is due on April 15th, that's when your tax return is due April 15th of the next year. Your payments, or first payment, was actually due April 15th of the previous year. So when you're filing your taxes, you should also be making your first estimated tax payment, if you have any kind of additional income or you don't have sufficient withholdings, April 15th for 2024. So this year, I filed my taxes by April 15th. Well, actually, I'm on extension, but I have that taken care of. But I paid my first estimated tax payment before April 15th. The next one was June 15th. Well, because it fell on a weekend, I went to June 17th. That was the second quarter. So we're halfway through the year, and I've already paid in for the first 2 quarters of the year. The next payment is due September 15th. So we still have a couple months to them, but you should be preparing now for these quarterly payments coming up. So the way the IRS looks at it is they want to see quarterly payments, regularly quarterly payments as you go throughout the tax year. So, so they have significantly increased penalties both on underpayment of both estimated tax payments and federal income withholding from salary and retirement income. So if it's set up as a W-2, and you just don't have enough being withheld, a lot of people like to play with those withholdings, and they feel like they need more money, things are tight, so they change their withholdings. You're now going to get hit with an extra 8% since November of 2023. Just last November, they jacked it up to 8% to match the interest rate that the federal government is charging of 8%. So if you're not having enough withheld, or you have any additional sources of income where taxes are not being taken out directly, you need to be talking to a tax preparer, and you need to be talking to a CPA. Now, if you have regular payments, regular distributions, it just comes in like clockwork, you can talk to a CPA that can help you, or a tax preparer, figure out how much you need to be taking out every month, or at least every quarter. So every quarter, it varies. Sometimes the first quarter is 3 months long, second quarter was only 2 months long, third quarter is 3 months long, and then the fourth quarter is 4 months long. So it is not, I don't know why they do that. I'm sure there's a reason. But you have to plan this out. So we are coming up on another break in just another 30 seconds. And so making these estimated tax payments can save you hundreds of dollars in penalties each year. And it also prevents you from owing and having to hire a tax attorney like me. So again, we talk to people all day long, and if you can do it right, avoid these issues, which is what we're trying to talk about here and emphasize, it can only help you and your family. So again, we're going to dive into this more when we come back from the break, and we'll be back in a sec. Welcome back, everybody, for this final session here. So again, we left off talking about estimated tax payments and how doing these estimated tax payments will save you not only from getting hit by failure to pay penalties if you don't pay it all by April 15th, but it also makes sure that you're on top of it. Most people file taxes or don't file taxes when they think they're going to owe. When they don't have confidence that they'll be able to pay their taxes. So being on top of it and having that built into your budget helps you avoid a lot of issues, because once you owe money, when you get hit with the failure to file, failure to pay penalties, the penalties can be over 50%. And that doesn't stop. That's not a cap. That's where they start out for the first year, and it builds up over time. And then people can end up paying well more than 55%. But if all the penalties max out, that's what you're looking at, a 55% penalty, and then it continues to accrue interest every single year, currently at 8%. So what's been the impact on taxpayers? So the average penalty went from 150 to 2022 to 500. And the number of people affected by it went from 12 million to 14 million. Overall, in 2022, and this is the staggering number, went from 1.8 billion assessed, that's not collected, but assessed in 22 to $7 billion in 2023. So again, this is the average. A lot of them can be very minor, especially for people that aren't making a lot. But if you do have more income, if you do have different sources of income, if you planned to have multiple sources of income, that's what you should be doing. That's what we, again, wise financial planning. But you still have to, especially in retirement, you have to be on top of this, or it's gonna hit you hard. So it kind of takes a little big step back in time. But since 1943, anybody getting income that doesn't have the annual federal income tax liability withholding through their salary has to pay estimated tax payments. It's always been like this, and they brought it in now. So if you're not paying enough, you get hit with these same penalties. It's just interest rates are going up so high that it's really hurting people right now. So this is for individual taxpayers who don't pay enough in federal income tax throughout the year. So you could be a W-2 earner, still get hit with this penalty. And there's going to be a lot of people that get hit by this. So again, this is where it says it was 3%. In 23, they increased it to 6%, and then in November, up to 8%. So there are a lot of tax rules to know. It gets a little complicated. The best thing here is to stay ahead of it. Make sure you're looking at so a couple things here. First of all, you need to have good numbers to pay your estimated tax payments. I talk to business owners all the time. People making $10,000, people making $100,000. It's very, very similar, and it's tripping people up all across the board. You have to have good numbers to know what your income is. I have a client that's business is doing well over $1 million every single year in revenue, and they don't have a regular profit and loss being done. They don't know what their numbers are. They don't know what their liabilities are going to be at the end of the year. And I just had one produced, and everybody's sitting back going, hold the phone here. What's going on? And I'm like, you guys haven't been paying sufficient estimated tax payments. This is why it's hurting you. This is why this needs to be addressed. So, first thing, you should be budgeting. You should be planning, and it's going to be, as things get tighter and as these penalties get worse, it's going to be more important to do this. But you should be talking to your CPA or tax preparer, not just around April 15th, but you should be touching base with them throughout the year. Before every estimated tax quarter, you should get an update on your profit and loss. Now, if you have QuickBooks or if you have someone regularly doing your bookkeeping and they're on top of it, It shouldn't be that hard. You just plug the numbers into a program and you should be able to just pull it up. Where are we now? And it might not be 100% accurate, but that's okay. So if you're a little bit shy, you're only going to have a little bit of a penalty. It's if you're not paying in at all, which is what most people are doing, that's when they get hammered by these huge bills. And this is based on net profit, not what you actually take out of your business. So a lot of people think, oh, I'll just leave the value of my business. No, it's still going to get hit. You don't have to take the whole amount out of your business, but you have to take the net profit out, the taxes for the net profit, and pay that. So again, if you have questions, give us a call, 520-485-7371. We can go over it with you. We'll refer you on to an excellent tax preparer or CPA to make sure you are on top of this. So there's some safe harbors here. I'm just going to go into this real quick. If you owe less than $1,000, you can just pay it by April 15th. No big deal. So they're not looking at trying to hit everybody that maybe owes a little bit. But if you owe more than $1,000, they're looking at 90% of your federal tax liability has to be paid by April 15th due date. And these are for employees. The due date, so employees that have 90% of the payroll withholding done, they have to have 90% paid by December 31st, not April 15th of the next year. And so for people that have income that's not subject to withholdings, the deadline is minimum is 90% is the fourth quarter deadline or January 15th. So at the end of the year, they give you a little bit of time, get your books together, figure out what's going on. So you have 15 days, calendar days from the end of the year to make that and get that estimated tax payment in, which means if you're trying to do the whole year in December when everybody's on vacation and taking time off for the holidays, good luck. Good luck to you, because that's going to be a tall order. But if you have your year put together and all you have to do is do December, because you've already have January through November done, because you're on top of it, you can easily spit out those numbers within that 2 weeks before January 15th and get that submitted timely. And these are called safe harbors. So if you meet these basic thresholds, and this is 90% of your previous year's tax, as long as you're doing that, you qualify for a safe harbor and you're not going to get hit for penalties. The problem is, be careful here, because it's a lot of people think they qualify for these safe harbors and don't, or their income goes down and all of a sudden they don't. So if you're making less than $150,000 and you have to pay the IRS 100% of the prior year federal tax liability by December 31st or January 15th if you're paying estimated tax payments. Then if you do that, if you pay 100% of the previous year, so that's not 90% anymore, that's 100%. And if it's over 150,000, then you must pay 110% of the prior year by the deadline to qualify for the waiver of IRS withholding penalty. And these apply per quarter, not per year. So this is a big thing here. So they look at, you have to have the total paid by January 15th, but you need to be paying in that amount every quarter. So if you just have a big, if you just get through the year and you pay a huge chunk in December, you have it paid by January 15th, you're still going to get hit with the penalty if you haven't been paying throughout the year. So just to explain this a little bit, it means if an individual has significant taxable income during the second quarter of the year, but does not pay the safe harbor amount for that second quarter equal to 100% of the prior year's second quarter federal income tax liability, then you can still get hit with the penalty payment. So they're going to compare quarter to quarter, which means you need to be paying, submitting vouchers and making those payments throughout the year so that the IRS has something to compare it to. What if it goes down? What if your income goes down? Then you just have to make sure you're not going to owe by the end of the year. And you should be fine. So this is a safe harbor that you don't owe by going off the previous year's income. But if your business income goes down, if your personal income goes down, you just need to make sure you don't owe. Or if you do owe, you will be hit with that penalty. So if it's less than $150,000, you have to be paying 100% to qualify for the safe harbor, and then over 150,000, it has to be 100% of the prior year tax liability for that quarter. So what do they suggest? Paying a little extra in. Extra federal income tax withholding can help. So, and whenever you take money out, this is what really trips people up. So when you take money out, annuities, thrift savings plans, traditional IRA withdrawals, Roth IRAs, 401ks, Social Security payments are all taxable. If you think something's not taxable, check with your CPA, check with your tax preparer first. Do not assume. And if they tell you something, in general, there are a few things that aren't taxable. Some types of disability, veterans disability is not taxable, but the list of exceptions is small for what's not taxable. So they give an example right here. Richard owes $5,000 of federal income tax on investment income that occurred in the first quarter of the year. And so he has a traditional IRA, and then requests an extra $5,000, that they pay an extra $5,000 in extra income tax. So when he made the withdrawal, he said, well, take out another $5,000, pay the IRS. And that should cover the first quarter of the year. By having that extra $5,000 paid in, he should avoid the estimated penalty for the first quarter of the year. So when you make withdrawals, this is an example of what to do. You can make those withdrawals early. You can get that taken care of when you're making withdrawals from retirements. It's a lot harder to do for Social Security payments and from federal retirement annuities. So be aware of that. Don't assume that whoever you're is giving you the pension is responsible for it and going to take care of it, because they frequently won't. And that's where people get burned. And don't forget about state estimated tax payments. 42 states in the District of Columbia have penalties on underpayments of estimated income taxes. The rest of the states probably don't have income tax at all. So when you're setting aside taxes for the IRS, making those estimated tax payments, take care of the state as well. You do not want to owe the state. Their penalties are usually worse than the IRS. They are more aggressive to deal with, 9 times out of 10. And again, we frequently tell people, pay off the state and use that to qualify for a better resolution with the IRS if you qualify. But yeah, you don't want to be playing around with the states. So key takeaways here from today. 1, have a budget put together for you and your business. 2, stay on top of it throughout the year. Get your bookkeeping done. You don't have to be paying someone to do it. My firm, we have a bookkeeper that we use for reference, and we have a CPA as well. But my office manager manages our QuickBooks. She has enough knowledge where she manages it, and she has professionals she can go to that help her throughout manage it. Don't do it if you're not comfortable doing it, though. I've seen too many people mess up their own books and cause huge tax issues because they didn't know. So you can either work with a bookkeeper to do it yourself or have a bookkeeper do it. It will save so much money. It helps you track your income better. So budget, get a bookkeeper. It helps you plan, especially if you're a small business owner, but also plan and pay your estimated tax payments. Not only for the IRS, for the state as well. Don't forget the state. If you're doing these things, you can sleep easy, knowing that you're not going to have taxes used in the past. And I know a lot of CPAs historically have told people, don't give the IRS, don't give the states a penny more. Save that all in your savings account to gain interest for you, and then pay them when you need to. The interest penalties are so bad right now with the IRS. I think that what used to be good advice is fallen by the wayside. Make sure you pay in more than enough to take your taxes so that you can breathe easy. And once you have that handled, you can truly feel like your taxes have been made easy. And it can give you a lot of peace of mind. And that really is our goal here, to make taxes easy for you so that you can feel comfortable and focus on what really matters in life, which isn't taxes. Have a great day.